Have you ever noticed that your internal conversation is somewhat nasty, entirely contradictory, and we would not tolerate it if it was coming from a friend? Or that this nasty and unkind inner narrative tends to entirely dysregulate and trigger us? What if we could actually learn to talk with those voices instead of being bullied by them? What if I told you there was a way to not only dialogue with our internal narrative, but to reset our nervous system at the same time, creating lasting shifts in our emotions, thoughts, behavioral patterns, and ways of being? Hi, Wounded Healers. I'm Brian Hogan, life coach, filmmaker, and clinical therapist. Welcome to another Wellness Wednesday, your weekly oasis at the intersection of creativity and well-being. Today, we're going to talk about an amazing way to shift your consciousness using radical self-acceptance and self-kindness, along with cutting-edge energy psychology and emotional freedom techniques called tapping. So today's video is really about two things: understanding what the shift method is and experiencing why it works. This is literally the intersection of creativity and well-being for me because I've brought my creativity to bear by combining these two modalities into something interesting and powerful that I call the shift method. And the S.H.I.F.T, they all stand for something. And this works so well for my own well-being, and it gets real results for my clients too. And now I want to share this thing that I've created with you guys. So what are we actually shifting? Well, let's look inside the mind for a moment. I alluded to your inner narrative earlier, and the inner narrative can often look something like this. I want sugar. I don't want sugar. I should quit my job. You can't quit your job. You're a worthless loser and nobody would hire you. What's the password again? God, I'm a stupid idiot. Society is an idiot for making me remember so many passwords. Everyone's an idiot. This is the incoherent and often unkind type of story that various parts of our mind are telling themselves and each other to keep you safe. That's what makes up the inner narrative. It creates our worldview and our entire perception of reality, but it backfires a lot, and then we suffer because that worldview is from the perspective of our parts, limited aspects of our psyche, not our true self, our core self with a capital S, as it would be described or conceived in internal family systems therapy. So already you can hear it. Our inner world isn't a single voice. It's a whole cast of characters. You know this inner narrative is not the truth because of how it affects you. The stories coming from parts don't make you feel free. You're stupid. You're dumb. Go hide. You can't possibly do this. Don't even try. Nobody wants you. Those are awful stories. And notice how they make your heart race. They make your fists clench. They make your jaw set, your throat constrict, your muscles tighten. That's your nervous system trying to protect you from the stories it doesn't realize are coming from inside the house. It's becoming overwhelmed by the stories that your parts are trying to contain, that your parts are trying to spin and or believe, and sometimes both. And when the system can't hold this massive din of stories, it comes out as self-sabotage, overreactions, lashing out, people-pleasing, fawning, shrinking back, or any other pattern that is part of our default and that we now think, oh, that's just who I am. That's just how it is. This is fight or flight. And if it goes on long enough, we eventually freeze. We'll freeze into something that we are learning from polyvagal theory is called the chronic freeze state or functional freeze. So let's bring this home here now. What does shift actually do about all of that? Well, the shift method helps us to get in touch with that inner dialogue by first shifting back out of fight, flight, or freeze into rest and digest. We create safety first, then we support what comes up, then we expand and heal. SHIFT stands for S for somatic, H for holistic, I for internal, F for family, and T for tapping. Somatic, holistic, internal family tapping. Somatic means in the body, like tuning into our sensations and strengthening the mind-body connection to create felt safety. Holistic means that the method takes into account not just the mental stories, but the emotions, sensations, physical health, social environment, societal context, and spiritual nature of the individual as well. I and F are for internal family, which simply means an understanding that our mind has a whole cast of characters with competing interests. I should go to sleep. I want to finish this show, for example. Tapping means just what it sounds like. We literally tap on energy meridian points that correlate to ancient acupuncture points, which helps create that somatic energy of safety and healing. The S.H.I.F.T method is an integrated modality that combines the self-compassionate inner dialogue of IFS, or internal family systems, with the somatic body-based nervous system safety created by EFT or tapping, which stands for emotional freedom techniques. So in simple language, EFT regulates the body, IFS integrates the psyche. One grounds us, the other guides us. I'm a certified EFT practitioner, mentor, and trainer with EFT Universe, as well as a clinical IFS therapist trained by the IFS Institute. I have my own IFS therapist and my own EFT coach. So I've been using these modalities separately for years on myself, and I've been using them with clients separately for years because they work. EFT is a body-based stress release tool using gentle tapping on meridian points to calm the nervous system. So really briefly, it's a combination of Chinese acupressure, exposure therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy. Because what you do is you bring up and you expose yourself to the stories and the trauma, but you do it while tapping and moving energy around in such a way that it feels safe and allows you to feel grounded. So you're not re-traumatizing, but instead you're actually clearing stuck energy. And that leads to cognitive shifts, which is where the CBT aspect comes in. It's really beautiful and it's really powerful. And so it's an open eyes practice and you tap along, so there is a low barrier to entry. You could even try tapping lightly right now, side of the hand, eyebrow point, just to feel how it regulates your nervous system, side of the eye. And take a breath. And so even as we do this together in other videos, you don't have anything to learn. You just watch, repeat, and you start to heal. And then IFS, that's a psychological model that views the mind as an inner family or the whole inner psychological system as an internal family of parts led by the core self. And the core self is not a part, it is our true nature. It's like the real us. And that's a calm, compassionate, curious, courageous, clear, confident, connected center of who we are. And we all have this undamaged, undamageable core of peace. That's a core tenet of IFS. It's also a core tenet of many ancient mystical and wisdom traditions. So, if you come from a spiritual background, you will recognize this self as the same awareness traditions have always pointed to. So, do with that what you will. But the bottom line here is that EFT regulates the body. IFS integrates the psyche. One grounds us, the other guides us, and together they create this bridge between your physiology and your psychology. And at a certain point, it just became like a light bulb epiphany for me. Okay, so I'll tell you a story about this. A while back, I had gone to a wedding, and after the wedding, I was feeling really emotional and for many different reasons. There's stuff going on in my personal life, and weddings just bring up a lot of emotions. And so I started just tapping on the drive home, and I started to release, and it was this wash of tears. And then another time separately, like weeks later, I think it was before even, I'm not sure, I was leaving a taekwondo practice and just really vulnerable because of the way I got critiqued by the master. And he was super polite. It was a part in me that got triggered. And I knew that. I knew that even then. So I was trying to do my parts work on the drive home. And I wasn't tapping. I was doing some IFS with myself and telling my part. Oh, I see you. I see how you really got your feelings hurt. And that makes sense given what you've been through with other teachers when you were younger, and thinking about memories from when I was a kid that the part was kind of bringing up. And, this also had me start to cry. And I was really connecting through this parts work that I had just been learning to do. This was a couple of years ago. So one time the healing came through the body. The other time the healing came through the mind. But both brought me to the same place: presence, tears, and truth. And at a certain point after those drives, it just kind of dinged for me, and seeing it the way it would work with my clients. And I realized these two approaches are speaking the same language. One is through touch and somatic safety, and the other through dialogue, through the touch of understanding and relational connection. So one was through relationships, and one was through internal safety. And that's just so powerful. And so I started just using them in tandem on myself, where I would do some parts work while sometimes tapping, and it just became so very powerful. And I was having so many triumphs and breakthroughs. And so I started just bringing it in my sessions and using it with clients too. I'd already been using it separately with clients anyhow. So, I had a participant who we would go back and forth between getting to know parts and then tapping. And they were able to clear the emotional charge fully from a sexual assault that happened when they were a teenager, to the point where future sessions talking about it didn't bring up the same emotional charge. And this was something that had dogged this person for decades. They were able to get insights from it, and it just didn't have the same impact anymore. It was a part of their history that informed their healing rather than being a part that was hindering them. And that was from the S.H.I.F.T method, the somatic, holistic, internal family tapping. Another client was a teenage male, and he was able to befriend his anxiety in a brand new way and understand it, label it, name it even. He was able to get a sense of the role that it played in his life. And even though his anxiety didn't go away from using the S.H.I.F.T method, what did happen was he had a completely different visceral relationship with it. So when he would get anxious, he would be able to bring self-kindness and self-compassion and a felt sense of safety to bear right away because of the deep understanding he had by doing parts work while feeling the somatic sense of safety from tapping. And he had a real visceral shift. His relationship to his anxiety was never the same. He was the leader now, and he would bring his anxiety along if it showed up. So S.H.I.F.T doesn't just help people calm down. It helps people come home to themselves. It helped me come home to myself. That's been my experience. So tapping, as you tap, you start to feel a sense of groundedness in the body. And when you feel that sense of groundedness while also having a deep, self-compassionate understanding of your parts and how they operate and how they try to protect you, they soften too. And so this is what allows for the shift, for the change. It's the same old paradox from the Carl Rogers quote. Only when I accept myself exactly as I am, then I can change. And this somatic, holistic, internal family tapping, the S.H.I.F.T method, allows for a real place of shameless safety where you can accept who you are, mistakes, foibles, flaws, regrets, all of it. And in that acceptance, you see the actual truth, that you are whole and unbroken, and you always have been. That's the moment when the shift happens, when compassion becomes medicine. Those experiences with clients and my own experiences, like trying self-therapy and using these modalities side by side for years without ever realizing I should use them together, led me finally one day to have a eureka moment and create the S.H.I.F.T method. Somatic, holistic, internal family tapping. Somatic because we're healing through the body and creating that grounded sense of safety through tapping. Holistic because we're welcoming every layer of experience, whether that's emotions from parts, thoughts from parts, sensations in the body, memories, it's all welcome. Even current contexts that might be impinging upon our thriving and well-being. Internal family, the I and the F, because this comes from the understanding that we are made of many parts and none of our parts are bad. They're trying to protect us, just like the internal family systems model suggests. And then the T for tapping, because we're using rhythm and touch to restore safety, keeping ourselves grounded and tap into the science and wisdom behind the energy meridian points in Chinese acupressure to move and unblock stale and stuck energy. So this becomes a conversation between our nervous system and our psyche and our spirit. This is when science and spirituality shake hands, where the body's wisdom and the psyche's compassion work in an aligned way. So now that we know what the shift is, I would love for you to experience it. So if this resonated and you're intrigued, check out my podcast, DIY Wellness, episode number 36, Changing the Mental Conversation One Wounded Part at a Time. If you listen to that episode, and these are like 15, 20-minute episodes, you can watch it on Spotify or YouTube, and you can go through a 10-minute S.H.I.F.T experience where you'll feel what it's like to go through the S.H.I.F.T method as you get to know your own internal family and your own psychological conversation even better. We will tap through a full IFS-informed EFT experience. You can click right here at the end of this video, take a breath, and join me in real time. Until next week, please continue taking personal growth into your own hands. I love you and I trust you, humanity. See you in the next video. Bye.